Hello, it's Mike Matthews. I'm the host of the longest-running self-produced daily podcast on planet Earth in Café Anyway, the last place on Earth, the land of Rootabega. Yes, this is a place called Café Anyway, and the show is called Mike's Daily Podcast, FF episode 3079, 3079. So there's a guy named Nicholas Everstadt, and he is well known. He's like one of these people that helps out. He's like an advisor, a consultant. He has a think tank or works for a think tank called the American Enterprise Institute, which is what they say is center-right leaning. And he is also an advisor to the National Bureau of Asian Research, and also a member of the visiting committee at the Harvard School of Public Health. And he also is a member of the Global Leadership Council at the World Economic Forum. And his daughter's in a band called Daloon, a music duo called Daloon, which is sort of like rock meets dance. And I guess if you think of, what was that band called? The Evanescence, kind of that sound is what the daughter is in. And he taught at Harvard University. Okay, so all of that, I'm telling you, because he's come up with this thing about the malaise of young American males out there, young American men, and that they are opting out of the most important institutions, work, education, and family in record numbers. It says here that the screen time is the big culprit. Screen time, gaming and all the other stuff that you can get on a screen can account for nearly half of the drop in working hours for men in their 20s. This is from the years 2004 all the way up to 2017. Of course, many parents of teenagers understand this problem starts before men hit their 20s, and you throw in the well-documented failures of schools to cultivate the hearts, minds, and talents of boys and young men. And Nicholas Everstadt calls this a normative sea change. Yes, a change in the sea is happening. Watch out. Poseidon's not happy. Neptune, whoever that guy is with the pitchfork under the water. Captain America. No, wait, Captain Aquaman. Anyway, it has made it a viable option for sturdy men to sit on the economic sidelines, living off of the toil or bounty of others. And you get a fuller picture of the familial, economic, and cultural forces arrayed against our young men. The bottom line is that government handouts can and do sustain the growing male discontent from work, but the story of young men and unemployment is about much more than the failures of Uncle Sam. There's plenty of blame to go around. So we need to get out from behind the screens. And you can catch this podcast on a screen, but I don't advise it because it's not that interesting. It is more of an audio thing. So hopefully while you're listening to this, you're out there walking, or maybe you're driving to see some beautiful national monument somewhere, or maybe you're going to the sea to see Poseidon or Neptune or Captain Aquaman America. And whatever it is, I hope you get out there, get out of the house and make something of yourself. It's tough. When I got done with school at UC Santa Barbara, and my mom she was very upfront about it. She said, you know what, college, you're going to college. I don't put any credence behind college. I know it's basically a holding tank for all the young people who just got out of high school. And hopefully you learn something. Hopefully you make something of your life. And I got out of college and I did feel really weird. Like, where does this go here? There's a song by the band Timbuk 3 that was popular when I was a kid called The Future's So Bright, I Gotta Wear Shades. And in it, they were singing, it was a young couple that wrote this song, got popular, had a one-hit wonder. They were from Madison, Wisconsin, and then they vanished. But maybe they're still around. I haven't really looked them up. But the thing is that it was all about the premise of the song was a kid graduating from college and going into working at a nuclear power plant, becoming a nuclear physicist and working in that area, which is funny. That was back in the 80s. And I remember in the 80s, we were so anti-nuclear power. And since then, Well, what's come back? Nuclear power, because we got to power. It takes a lot of power to power AI and Bitcoin and the servers and everything else we use. The whole internet world we use is powered, needs a lot of power, and it's going to be powered by nuclear power if Microsoft and the rest get their way. So that song should become more popular today, or become more pertinent anyway. I think it peaked in the top 20 possibly. I remember hearing it a lot. They listed as new wave folk rock. So, and that was in the mid to late 80s. But yeah, that was not waiting for me when I graduated college. I graduated with a communications degree, and that's pretty much okay. What are you going to do? You're going to communicate. I guess that's important. All humans do that. But how are you going to communicate? And podcast didn't exist yet. So I got into radio. And I really liked that, and I guess I'm still in it. So I made a career out of it, is all I can say. You can't make too much of a career out of it unless you become a huge celebrity, which that never happened. So I instead decided to plant myself at Café Anyway and bring you a podcast, which we got to go into Café Anyway in order for me to plant myself there. So let me get the door for you, and let's go. Café Anyway, welcome to Café Anyway. Here we are.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 3079, 3079. Mike Matthews, thank you for listening to this podcast from Café Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth in the land of Meritopica. Yes, I'm in America, so don't try to tariff me, brah. I have a place here in America, so you're not importing it. It's clear that I don't want to have to foot a potential tariff bill with this show.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I want to be just here doing it and getting zero money like I usually do.
Mike's
And then
Daily
I guess the tariff I pay
Podcast.
is to the website mikesdailypodcast.com to keep it going. So I'm not as smart as Warren Buffett, but he's retiring after 60 years at Berkshire Hathaway. He said he's stepping down. He's 94. He revealed recently that he would leave his CEO position by the end of this year, 2025. In 1965, going way back 60 years, Buffett took over a struggling textile company, and over the next 6 decades, he transformed it into a $1.1 trillion conglomerate. Berkshire is one of the most successful American companies of the modern era in which you and I live. It now owns 189 operating businesses, almost 200, such as, and you've probably heard some of these names. It's such a weird mishmash of companies that he owns. Geico, okay, the little gecko, and insurance, and that's probably doing well because, gosh, paying for insurance in California, State Farm is doing the 17% increase if you got property. I don't know if Geico does property. Then there's Duracell and batteries. I don't think Teslas are powered by Duracells.
And here's today's podcast picture.
But it's like everything else is. The podcast picture is of the wonderful, what is this thing? What are we taking pictures of these days?
Why do your toenails look like that?
Hey, you were like wondering what was Mike just trailed off. What happened there? Well, that's what happens when you do video. You get distracted and your audio suffers. This is true. This is the absolute lay down the law of all time. It's the truth. But the podcast picture is not of the late great Basil the Boxer, although we featured one of him recently. It is of a beautiful area that I took him to many times up at the top of Columbia. Columbia is this mountain rangey thing in the back of Podcastro Valley. There's a bunch of really expensive homes and an HOA that stands for Home of America. Homeowners Association. Ah, there we go. And so that's that added extra fee you gotta pay. Probably run into it at some point. And they get a nice pool. That's about it. Nice pool, a nice park. But people that don't live there, of course, can't use the pool. They can use the park. Basil the Boxer went to the park many times. But the thing is that this area here is open to everybody. East Bay Regional Park District runs it. This spot that you see at mikesdailypodcast.com, the podcast picture for today. And you may have noticed if you go to mikesdailypodcast.com that I'm about a week behind with posting the, oh wow, a bus just stopped by Café Anyway and slammed on the brakes. I don't know if you caught that screech.
Is that why you're bald, Mike?
Because of screeching sounds from buses? Yes, that's probably why I'm bald. Thank you for pointing that out, jerk. But yeah, I got to get up to speed with the shows at mikesdailypodcast.com. But hey, you'll catch this podcast picture eventually at mikesdailypodcast.com. If you're listening to this right now, the podcast picture should pop up if you're watching or listening rather on Spotify. You don't watch this show. I mean, you can. There's a link to where to see the video at mikesdailypodcast.com and see my wonderful shirt from the now defunct Brown Sugar Kitchen, which used to sit there in West Oakland in an old-timey house, and now that's gone. West Oakland. It grows and then it shrinks again, but now it's growing again because the Ballers baseball team is about to start playing at Romani Park. That's happening actually today as of the airing of this podcast for the first day. And I'm involved with the broadcast of the game on the radio station 860 AM, The Answer, KTRB in the Bay Area. And the guys that do it are really nice. Tyler Peterson and Nevada Cullen, nicest guys.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
No danger involved. Just make sure when you... Actually, there's really no danger with the parking lot. I had inspected the parking lot last year. If they got the same thing going like they did last year, it looked pretty safe, so... And you're really close there to the bay. You're not actually on the bay, but you're pretty close, so you get a nice breeze in the hot summertime. I went there on a pretty hot day. But back to Warren Buffett. He is the investing greatest of all time, or as they shorten that down to GOAT. It's a bad abbreviation, but they do that. And his creed of patience and seeking value generated outsized returns for decades. Value in company and his way of being patient with companies. He has increased. He's seen an increase of 20% a year just about, compared to the S&P's only 10.4%. That's S&P, as in Standard & Poor's.
Hey, good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later.
Not as in Mr. Microphone. Standard & Poor's. And of course, then there's the Dow Jones. And I'm going to be stopping talking about these things because I'm not that well-known, knowledge in the knowing of all these things. The stock market index that shows the performance. It's tracking the stock performance of 500 leading companies listed on stock exchanges in the United States. Thank you. As we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth in the land of Ameritopica. And did you catch any of the Kentucky Derby? A couple weeks back, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville looks nice. Is that where they created that bat, certain bat for baseball?
Roller.
Speaking of baseball. Anyway. Café Anyway. Yeah, I've seen some video on that. Looks like a nice place. One of these days, I'll have to visit. The most exciting 2 minutes in sports. It's one of the most lucrative events in American business. The Derby continues to thrive as a major economic engine because of the tourism, because of the fashion involved. People really dress up for that thing. The beverage companies involved, because people sure drink a lot at that thing. And people when they're watching, the broadcasters involved that pay money for that. There's a lot of money for that as well involved, and they're broadcasting the beverage company commercials. And, of course, all the people betting. And it's horse racing. It shattered previous records this year with $210 million in total betting handled. And we're becoming a huge gambling nation. We've always been a gambling nation. My dad was a big gambler. That was not a good thing, a trait that he had. It was an awful trait. Terrible. And people are coming down with the gambling bug all over, and it makes it even easier for them to gamble because of the internet, and it's terrible, and I hate it. But 157,000 spectators. So do I go to Vegas? Just an aside? No. I've been there twice.
Mike is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I will not go back to Vegas. Unless there's some big thing I got to go to that I'm invited to. Maybe if I get free tickets, free airline tickets, maybe I'll go. I guess there's other things to see in Vegas other than the gambling, but there sure isn't much more. Gambling's intertwined with everything in Vegas. And all this information I got from Rob Black. I produce his podcast. He's the guy you just heard saying I'm awesome. And he is heard on AM 1220 KDOW weekday afternoons at 5. And he's on Cron TV Monday through Thursday in the 9 o'clock hour. You can see him. But yeah, 157,000 spectators were there in person. That generated millions in ticket sales, concessions, and merchandise. And to actually go to that costs over $3,500 per person. Got an extra $3,500 lying around? You could go to the Kentucky Derby. Next year, it'll probably be up to $4,000. PepsiCo, BMW, key sponsors. NBC saw strong viewership numbers with over 16 million viewers. There was a $3 million purse, the $1.86 million going to the winning horse's owners. The winner, Midnight Sovereign, expects to command upwards of $2,500 per stud fee, potentially earning tens of millions over its post-racing career.
It's a trap!
It is a trap. Don't get into gambling. I know this is the tradition. It's huge in England, huge here, other countries as well, but yikes. My dad bet on the horses, and it's just, my mom liked horse betting. Later in life, we went to greyhound betting, a greyhound betting facility in Daytona Beach. I think that's gone now. And that just felt weird. But oh well. We're outside a Café Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth in the land of Meritocracy. And look who is here. It's someone who's been here a lot, and it's clear she's going to dance around and spot you in the crowd, and she'll pull you up on the stage and you'll dance like Courtney Cox and Bruce Springsteen, and everything will be all right. We're a team together. This past weekend was the rodeo near Podcastro Valley, and I didn't go, but that's okay. My name's not Sally. What? Here is the person we're introducing now. Hi, Mike. It's Benita the rodeo queen. How you doing? I brought my horse to do it. It's a disgruntled fiddle player. Tell you what. What? I thought y'all once was an announcer at a rodeo or something like that. Well, it's true. I was in Huntsville, Alabama, 2009, I believe. Was it? No, 2008. I was there in Huntsville, Alabama, and I was the program director for a country station called 93.3 The Wolf.
Hi there, Mike. How are you?
And we needed to have a presence there. They invited us, this rodeo that they had at the A&M rodeo facility, something like that. So I showed up. This is all a one-man show, basically. I showed up in a truck, a little truck that had our logo on it and a picture of George Strait, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Shania Twain. They were big at the time. Kenny Chesney. They were all on the outside of this truck. Very popular singers at the time in country music. So I got out this table like you can get at Costco, one of those collapsible tables, set it up, got out the tent that had our signage on the outside of the tent I think there was a thing I had to pull. Very complicated. You can't do it by yourself. You can, but it is extremely difficult to do. So I'm doing all this on my own. And I set it up, and I basically leave it and hope nobody steals it. Go inside, and there are some guys there, big, tough, brawny rodeo guys, been dealing with horses and bulls their whole lives, know all the ins and outs and disgusting things that you need to know when it comes to rodeo, and the tough and the painful things. And they love rodeo, and they're sitting there and like, yeah, you're gonna announce it? And I said, yep. Oh, okay.
What is the matter with you?
What, you gonna throw some t-shirts at the crowd? You don't got one of those air guns that shoot them up in the crowd? You're gonna throw it with your... Yeah, I got a horrible throwing arm, and I'm going to try and throw T-shirts. I wish Wookie was there. Maybe he could have had a laser cannon type air cannon that shoots the T-shirts up in the crowd.
What was that all about?
So I'm walking around in this mud, because basically the dirt there that the horses and the bulls run around on is very muddy, soft dirt. So when the guys fall, or the women fall, the cowboys, cowgirls fall, it's not as tough on their bones when they hit the ground. I guess, I don't know. That's what anyway, I was sinking into this mud and dirt, and I think I did have boots on. It was not full-fledged cowboy boots, but some kind of a boot thing that worked, so I wasn't getting mud in my feet and that kind of thing, and who else knows what else is intertwined with the mud. And I threw T-shirts, and it was the most pathetic thing of all time. And I hope there's no video. This is before everybody had video on their phones, so thankfully I don't think there's any record of this. But I did it, and that's my one experience, very intimate experience with rodeo.
Right.
I did not ride a horse that day. I did ride a horse many, many years later. Actually, just a few years ago, my lovely lady friend and I rode horses in Half Moon Bay, and that was wonderful. So Nilly the horse is always welcome here. I love horses. Yeah, Nilly the horse is great. Rodeos are tough. I'll tell you, they're great, though, to go to. All right. Just as long as I'm not throwing T-shirts out in the crowd from the dirt and the manure. Look who else is here. Oh, man, can I make delicious root beer? Have to right now. Oh, I can't wait to try it. Wow, what's in that delicious root beer? I put some Arnold Palmer in there. Arnold Palmer, that's a mixture of lemonade and iced tea and root beer. I don't think that's going to take off. Drink right now, I'll cut you. Is that going to be your slogan for people so that they drink? You don't want to threaten people with your slogan for your product is what I'm thinking. Anyway, Café Anyway, what are you thinking about all this? Here's the phone number to call.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640.
And with all things having to do with Mike's Daily Podcast, we go to the mainframe and hear from A-Frame. Thank you so much for listening to this show.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye!